My name is Keynote and I lead UNESCO's programs on Holocaust and genocide education, hate speech, and anti-Semitism. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this event organized by UNESCO and the Royal Photographic Society of Great Britain to launch the exhibition Generations, Portraits of Holocaust Survivors. We are deeply grateful to them and to all survivors who continue to share their story. They inspire us with their resilience, courage, and example. We are also grateful to their children and grandchildren for sharing their visions through this exhibition of the painful legacy they have inherited. Ladies and gentlemen, today we reflect on the power of culture and education, its power to bring people together and foster understanding, its power to empower young people and help them recognize their responsibility to carry forward the memory of the Holocaust and stand up for human rights. These values underpin this outstanding exhibition and are at the core of UNESCO's mission. Without further ado, I have the honor to give the floor to Mrs. Stefania Giannini, Assistant Director General of UNESCO for Education.
I wish to start by expressing a sense of deep-felt gratitude to the survivors and their descendants who dedicate their lives to raising awareness about Nazi crimes. They do so not only in honor of the victims of the Holocaust, but for all of us. The exhibition that we inaugurate today is an act of resistance from all those survivors and refugees from Nazi Germany who refuse to remain silent or invisible in the face of the crimes of their childhoods. Holocaust memory started with their courageous accounts. It's our collective duty that it lives on in the future. Each photograph, each story of this exhibition creates a moment to reflect on the generations of children and grandchildren who, according to the genocidal plan of Nazi Germany, were never meant to be here. It sharpens our sense of moral responsibility and reminds us of the abiding consequences of allowing hate speech and violent ideologies to proliferate without challenge. That is why UNESCO supports educators worldwide to educate about the history of Holocaust, to prevent anti-Semitism and to counter Holocaust denial and distortion, notably online. That is also why we support the World Jewish Congress We Remember campaign on International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I commend the Royal Photographic Society of Great Britain and the 12 photographers who contributed to this exhibition for capturing this sentiment of presence and remembrance in such compelling portraits. It ensures a more comprehensive understanding of the Holocaust and highlights its enduring relevance today, globally. And I thank the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, the Imperial War Museum, and the Association of Jewish Refugees for continuing to remind us of these through this exhibition and their broader commitment to preserve the memory of the Holocaust. We all have the collective duty to remember and learn about the Holocaust and stand united against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Giannini. I would like to thank the Royal Photographic Society and their 12 participating fellows for bringing to us a deeply profound and intimate exhibition that anyone can relate to. We are honored to be joined by Mr. Simon Hill, President of the Royal Photographic Society of Great Britain, to deliver opening remarks.
In the early days of photography, the ambition of the photographic portraitist was to simply create only a likeness of their sitter. But the genre soon developed its own more worthwhile aesthetic. The essence of portrait photography is about capturing the personality, identity, emotion and experience of the sitter. As humans, we are social beings, and we derive security and well-being from our interaction with other people. In the right hands, photography is an incredibly powerful medium, which can easily become the catalyst for change. One person's Facebook post about a cultural or social injustice can empower others to post on the same theme, the power of the hashtag. And very soon, a single post, with a single photograph, can inspire a movement with the potential to bring about truly massive cultural and societal change. Through the 1920s and 30s, across Europe, the far right rose to power, causing unimaginable repression, suffering and persecution. During the 1940s, some of the organisations that supported a far-right ideology were banned, and in 1945, the Nazi Party was dissolved. Today, however, those hateful political ideologies are re-emerging and gaining support. Do not think of the photographs you see in this exhibition only as some sort of commemoration of the past. Think of them as a warning of what still exists and which we, as decent people, must do everything in our power to fight against. When you look at these portraits, you will become a participant in a three-way dialogue. A dialogue between the sitter, as you discover more about their past experiences and future hopes, the photographer, how they have applied the portrait aesthetic to presenting in a single image a complex and often harrowing human story, and yourself as the viewer, looking at the portraits through 21st century eyes. If you catch sight of your own reflection in the image, ask yourself how you and your photography might be used to challenge the rise of genocide and hate that sadly, in so many places around the world, still exists today.
Thank you, Simon Hill. As part of the exhibition, photographer Simon Roberts took video portraits of 6 Holocaust survivors. Each portrait is accompanied by the words of family members. We are pleased to share with you the video portrait of Anne and Bob Kirk, narrated by their grandchildren Joshua, Devorah, and Benjamin.
I'm Josh from Northwood.
I'm Devorah from Watford.
And I am Ben, also from Northwood. And our grandparents are Anne and Bob Kirk. I mean, my earliest memories and just generally being at their house. So they lived in Kenton, in a beautiful little place, which I still remember so well. And yeah, I mean, if I describe what it was like living there, I mean, it was just full of like really joyous, happy childhood memories of playing in the garden. We used to play a lot of quoits. Some of my earliest memories of them are always just like watching Beano in their living room, and also we always used to do Hanukkah. So one of the Jewish festivals, we always used to do Hanukkah at theirs.
You know, they're not that big, but I remember them sort of looking up at them and just always smiling, always playing with us, reading to us. I think I massively took that for granted. They were just always just there and just always happy to do whatever I wanted to do.
I can't remember exactly when I first heard about their story. I remember learning about it as a child is very different to how you think about it when you become more adult and actually understand the severity of what happened to them. I think, you know, we had pretty idyllic childhood growing up, which they were a massive part of and were always part of it. So it was hard as a child to comprehend what they had gone through when all you've known living is such an idyllic childhood. They come from the darkest, literally the darkest of places, and I just think in terms of what they have been able to overcome in terms of their sadness to create something so beautiful and meaningful in terms of a family here and a community here, and they've always used their childhood experiences as a kind of force for good, be it to sort of teach acceptance and tolerance and really try and learn from the past. It's sort of unbelievably inspirational, and I definitely take that, I think, in my life. I've tried always to sort of like just be conscious of acceptance and not really, I mean, that's it, conscious of acceptance really, and making sure you're a force for good, because I think that's just the most important thing.
This exhibition does not only provide an opportunity to reflect on the systematic persecution and genocide of Europe's Jews by the Nazis and their collaborators. It also captures the special connections between survivors and the younger generation of their families, who rebuilt their lives in the United Kingdom. We are very honored to be joined by Lord Pickles, United Kingdom Special Envoy for Post-Holocaust Issues, to deliver a keynote address. He will be introduced by Her Excellency Mrs. Laura Davis, Ambassador, Designate Permanent Delegate of the United Kingdom to UNESCO.
Hello. The UK is delighted to be partnering with UNESCO for International Holocaust Remembrance Day, partly because the Royal Photographic Society portraits capture so well the richness of the lives of these genocide survivors and are therefore the perfect illustration of this year's themes of memory, dignity and justice. But also, of course, because of the great value the UK attaches to UNESCO's work on genocide education and tackling anti-Semitism and all violent extremism. This is an issue very close to the UK's heart, and so I'm honoured to introduce to you now Lord Pickles, the UK's Special Envoy for Post-Holocaust Issues. Lord Pickles ensures that the UK plays a prominent role in international discussion on all Holocaust-related matters, especially those relating to education, the opening of archives, and responding to the concerns of Holocaust victims and their families. With the UK Holocaust Memorial Foundation, he seeks to advance Holocaust education around the world, and he promotes the global restitution of art and immovable property. The UK delegation to UNESCO is very much looking forward to doing more on topics relating to Holocaust and memory, as well as on all UNESCO programmes that promote tolerance, freedom of expression and thought, and cultural diversity. Lord Pickles, over to you.
80 years ago, on a cold day in January, top-ranking Nazis gathered in a house by a lake on the outskirts of Berlin at Wannsee to discuss the exploitation and mass murder of Jewish people. Under the polite euphemism of the final solution, children would die alongside their parents and their grandparents. No one would be spared. With the loss of nearly 70% of its Jewish citizens murdered, Europe would become a lesser continent, scarred by the possibility of what could have been. It's only relatively recently that governments worldwide came together in Stockholm to agree on a date and a series of actions to remember the Holocaust. These pledges were reaffirmed last year in Malmö, committing a programme of action that ensures that the Shoah is never forgotten. On Holocaust Memorial Day, we commit ourselves to preserve the memories of those who lived through the horrors, and their experiences are not forgotten by this and future generations. Today, we will hear from a Holocaust survivor, my dear friend, Ivor Pearl. On the March of the Living, I had the joy of his company. Together, we stood on the evil separation ramp at Auschwitz. There he taught me that the Holocaust did not happen in a dark hideaway, but in plain sight, on bright sunny days, with birds singing. He is a profound teacher. Hear him well, remember, and be his witness for the future. The Generations, Portraits of Holocaust Survivors exhibition is part of that promise to remember the humanity of those that experienced the 20th century's greatest tragedy. This moving exhibition, coordinated by the Royal Photographic Society, supported by UNESCO, Jewish News, the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, and the Imperial War Museum, brings together over 50 contemporary portraits of Holocaust survivors and their families, shining a light on the full lives they have lived and our collective responsibility to cherish their stories. Placing these powerful photographs at UNESCO's headquarters in Paris is particularly poignant, as education is at the heart of UNESCO's mission to build peace. As a UK Special Envoy on post-Holocaust issues, remembrance and education is at the heart of my work. I am acutely aware that we do Holocaust remembrance a great disservice if we remember the dead and forget the present persecution of Jewish people across the world. Amazingly, Holocaust denial continues with deniers attempting to recast history, to erase the legacy and the reality of mass murder of Jewish people. The growing trend of Holocaust distortion is more mainstream, but just as pernicious. It casts doubts on numbers, assigns different descriptions to places. Death camps are redesignated as transit camps. Contemporary events are compared to the Holocaust. Collaborators of the Nazis are wiped from national memory. Holocaust distortion can be found at all levels of society and is far from a fringe phenomenon. That's why the work undertaken by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance is so important. We will promote fact-based knowledge about the history of the Holocaust and strengthen media and information literacy. When Holocaust distortion poses the most significant threat to this legacy, we cannot stop our fight for the truth. We will resolve that never again does not become the empty echo of past good intention. As individuals, we will guard against indifference. International Holocaust Memorial Day is a reminder of where hatred and intolerance, prejudice and anti-Semitism can lead.
I thank you both for the continued commitment of the United Kingdom to Holocaust remembrance and education, and for your support to UNESCO in this respect. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Jewish Congress is a key partner of UNESCO in our work to address anti-Semitism and counter the growth of Holocaust denial and distortion. Every year, we join the World Jewish Congress to raise awareness about the legacy of the Holocaust through the global We Remember campaign. We invite you to participate in this campaign by posting a photo with the hashtag #WeRemember to express your commitment to this most important cause. I am pleased to welcome Menachem Rosensaft, General Counsel and Associate Executive Vice President of the World Jewish Congress, to deliver an address.
On behalf of the World Jewish Congress and our President, Ambassador Ronald S. Lauder, I want to express our deep gratitude to UNESCO and to the Royal Photography Society of Great Britain for creating this important exhibition and for paying such beautiful tribute to the survivors of the Holocaust. I also want to commend the photographers who took these marvelous pictures, including Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cambridge, for the sensitive way in which they portrayed these members of what was truly the greatest generation, heroes who should be role models for all of us. I believe that these photographs should be seen by everyone and should become a part of our general consciousness. But there's a second dimension of these photographs, of this exhibition, to which I would like to call to your attention. As you walk past the photographs, I would ask you to focus on 5 of them. There is Huguette Couquier with her son, grandson, and great-grandsons. Irena Powell with her husband, son and daughter-in-law, and grandchildren. Joan Salter with her husband and daughter. Liesl Carter with her granddaughters, and Susan Pollock with her granddaughter. And as you look at those photographs, think of the millions and millions, 6 million to be precise, of individuals who never got to have that experience, who never got to experience a beautiful day with their children, with their grandchildren, with their great-grandchildren, who were deprived of that end-of-life experience of truly enjoying peace, peace of mind, peace of heart with their families, with their descendants. I want us to remember that for 6 million, that fate was denied. And so these photographs are not only representative of the survivors, they are a shadow image of all those who never made it this far, and whom we, on International Holocaust Remembrance Day and every day of the year, must remember, because our remembrance must be dedicated to their memory.
Thank you, Menachem Rosensaft and the World Jewish Congress for your support to this exhibition. I would also like to thank the government of the Principality of Monaco for supporting this event. This exhibition celebrates the rich lives and contributions of Holocaust survivors after beginnings marked by unimaginable loss and trauma. I would like to now give the floor to Justin Cohen, co-publisher of Jewish News, as he interviews Mr. Ivor Pearl.
Thank you, Karel, and thank you also to UNESCO for all the work you do in the field of Holocaust education, particularly in areas of the world where education on the Shoah is so limited or almost non-existent within the school system. As we've seen during the COVID pandemic, conspiracies, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia are growing, and so this work is more important now than it's ever been. That's why I'm so delighted and honoured to be joined by Ivor Pearl, who was photographed by Tom Hunter for the exhibition Generations Survivors of the Holocaust. Born on the 4th of February 1932, Ivor is one of the last people in Britain to have endured the horrors of Auschwitz, where he lost his mother, his 4 sisters, and his younger brothers. Ivor and his older brother Alec, who he credits with saving his life on at least 3 occasions, also survived Dachau and the Alec concentration camp in Germany. With the Allies fast approaching, they were ordered to be taken to the Tyrol Mountains and to be shot, but a general in charge refused, and Alec and his brother Ivor had a chance to escape. Ivor arrived in Britain in 1945 and went on to have 4 children and 6 great-grandchildren. And I'm honoured to be speaking to you today, Ivor. Thank you for joining me. It's very striking that you spent many years not talking about the Holocaust and what happened to you, even to your own family. But eventually you began speaking, and since then you've not stopped speaking to school groups, to youth groups, even to footballers from Chelsea and Arsenal football clubs. Why is this work so important to you?
Well, obviously it's very, very important because, as you said in the introduction, that the hatred is still to be surfacing all over again. So as much as it hurts me to talk about it, I feel rather than talking less, I think I'll have to increase telling my story to the children as well as adults as well.
And it was through your synagogue, I think, you were asked to speak at your synagogue that you first started speaking out. Tell us what happened there.
On the 50th anniversary of VE Day, that I was a member on the board of management of the synagogue. We're having to celebrate, but I said, I'm sorry, I can't celebrate this. I can commemorate an event like that. Yes, we can commemorate the 50th anniversary of the liberation, but we'll have to have certain people to represent, to talk about it, the religious leaders, army, or whatever it is, police. And of course, I, as a survivor, would be the one to talk about my experiences of the Holocaust. But I mentioned to them, I can't talk about it because I never have spoken about it to anyone, including my children. But nonetheless, for whatever reason, I had to decide I had to talk about it. And the time came, I think, as an actor, one realizes that you acquitted yourself quite well. Although I never spoke about it, I seem to have transformed my thoughts quite well. Because after the ceremony, people came to me and told me how impressed they were and what important it is to talk to somebody who's actually went through the experience rather than just read about it in the books.
From the Holocaust, we learn about where hatred can eventually lead. It didn't start in the gas chambers, it started with words, it started with name-calling. As you say, we're seeing a rise now in hate crime around the world, whether it be anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, other forms of hate crime. Do you think the lessons of the Holocaust have been learnt?
I'd hate to say no. I mean, how can I say no? You've got to be positive about it. But all I will say is I would like to see more positive proof about that. But I don't think it's nowhere near enough. Nowhere near enough. You can see around what's happening in the world. The hatred is still there. But the hatred is not only there for the Jews. I can guarantee you that if you go back in history, every time there's hatred, other people are being sort of persecuted as well.
When you go around schools and you're talking to the pupils, and you're telling them about what happened to you and how it's relevant for today, you must feel that you're making a difference.
I feel as I make a difference, but when I stand up talking about the children, looking around them, I'm thinking to myself, kids, I'm going to tell you a story. You haven't got the foggiest idea what actually happened. I can't tell you. I can't tell them what actually happened. I mean, you know what? We all wanted to go to the 3-tiered bunk beds. No mattress and nothing. You all wanted to go to the top. Why? Why do you think you want to go to the top? Did we have any for what we do for pollution and diarrhea and whatnot that we went through? How can you tell that to the children? You want to be on top because we're down below. As I'm saying, you can only tell a certain amount, and possibly justifiably. Maybe the children are not ready or not used to the actual disaster that the Holocaust we went through.
With fewer and fewer survivors around, this generation of survivors are not going to be with us forever. Are you confident that the next generation, the leaders of the world, that the memory of the Shoah is in safe hands?
Looking back from history, I have my doubts. Spanish Inquisition, pogroms, ghettos. At what stage do you say, no, it won't happen again? I hope and pray that people will learn. But if you want to go from past history, I feel as though I wish I could do more to make sure of that.
Ivor, this exhibition was created not just to remember the victims and to commemorate their lives, but also as a celebration of the lives of people like you and the other 50 featured survivors. Given what we've seen in recent years, what is your message at the moment to the next generation?
Well, all I can say is that all the Holocaust happened purely because people allowed themselves to be brainwashed by certain people. And I think that in future, people should think really hard that if they're going to start only on one person, eventually it'll spread down to other things as well.
A lot of what you've said today paints quite a pessimistic picture of where things are at in the world. And it's not surprising. I wanted to ask you, you're speaking today to a lot of world leaders, a lot of figures from the international community. What would you want to tell them?
He mentioned something about a negative. I said, all I'm talking about for truth is I know that people would like to hear just the good things. Well, I'm afraid that's not, I can't say that because that's not what happened to me. But all I can say to the world that any hatred that starts off with one particular person never ends up just with that. So don't think if you start hating or killing Jews that will be the end of the story. Then the next time you do the Muslims, the next time you do the homosexuals. I mean, as I said before, that the human nature And who will be the one to do that? I'm afraid I can't answer you. That I can't tell. But it doesn't mean to say that just because I feel sort of despondent about it, I shouldn't go around talking.
So what does keep you going?
I'll tell you what keeps me going. Quite a few years ago, I was standing waiting to go into school, giving a talk, and somebody came over to me, "Hello, Mr. Pearl, you don't remember me." He said, 3 years ago, you came and talked to our school, and I've never forgotten it. And I thought, I said, no, Ivor, that's what I wanted to hear.
What did they say to you about the impact that it had on
Well, no, it just had an impact that that 3 years ago, I still haven't forgotten it. And that's all. You can hope that, as I say, it took 1,000 years to get here. All you can do is take step by step, and hopefully people will learn from the lesson.
It's good to end on a positive note. Ivor, Pearl,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you for those powerful and inspiring words, Mr. Pearl. Thanks also to Jewish News for their valuable role in initiating and supporting this exhibition, and to all our other partners, the Imperial War Museum, the Association of Jewish Refugees, and the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, without which this exhibition could not be possible. To close today's event, I'm therefore very pleased to give the floor to Mrs. Olivia Marks-Waldman, Chief Executive of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. I thank you for your attention.
As Chief Executive of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, I was absolutely delighted that we could coordinate the Generations exhibition, working in partnership with Jewish News, the Royal Photographic Society, and the Imperial War Museum. The photographs that we have just seen stand as a fitting tribute to the resilience and fortitude of survivors in the face of adversity. The portraits are a celebration of the rich lives survivors have built in the UK and the special legacy their children and grandchildren will carry into the future. In this exhibition, we see a profoundly individual and personal side of Holocaust survivors. We see the teddy bear that 7-year-old John Haidu took with him when he was forced into the Budapest ghetto, and which he then brought to the UK. We see the family photographs, the only remaining trace of loved ones murdered during the Holocaust, clasped in the hands of our survivors. And we see the children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren of these remarkable people, new generations that stand as a testament to the failure of the genocide, but that also offer a tragic reminder of the families that could have been, but never were. For some survivors who did not go on to have families, as well as for those who did, we must be their witnesses. We will provide them with a legacy. In the face of fundamentally destructive and dehumanizing persecution, our survivors are living miracles. Each year on Holocaust Memorial Day, we come together to learn from their experiences and to commit ourselves to working against hostility in the world today. Survivors share their extraordinary life stories with us for a purpose, so that we may build a better future. Here in the UK, led by political, faith and community leaders, hundreds of thousands of people will join us to mark Holocaust Memorial Day in just a few days' time. Together, we will learn from genocide for a better future.